why the commission was a panel in the aftermath of the George Floyd situation. We were totally unaware of the Daniel Prude situation until a month later. We learned at the same time the public did. It had the effect of not only putting more on the mental health work, given all of the circumstances in the but as we subsequently discovered, as those groups began to work and as they began to involve other people from the community, we had about 150 people who volunteered to serve on one of the working groups. What we found is that initially there were people who assumed that they could move back and forth among the working groups. After it became clear very early that this was not going to be possible, the work was so intense, the time frame was so short, and the mission was so critical that people really devoted themselves to that specific group. So we had people who were dealing with things that they normally don't deal with. We had Sheriff Baxter. You would think he would be on the policing group. He was on the job creation group. We had County Legislator Lightfoot, who is the chairman of the City Council Public Safety Committee. He was on the job on the Business Development Group. And actually, as he got into the work, it actually, as you know, he's a small business owner, and he brought a unique perspective to that work. Other people from other walks of life who found themselves probably dealing with what they thought may be second or third choice. They ended up bringing critical focus to the work that they did. So we had these 9 working groups, 9 major areas of inquiry. Now we had to overcome the problems brought on by coronavirus, and that is that the distance requirements. All of our work was pretty much conducted virtually, but the working groups found creative ways to reach out. They had online discussions and forums. They had online town halls. In one instance, again, the aforementioned business development group, they wanted to hear directly from business owners, particularly small business owners, about particular challenges they face. So they organized a bus tour, and they spent a day going to the business sites and talking directly with the business owner about the problems and the issues that they were encountering. Now comes the time to put this report together. We had a volume of work, and it actually is distilled, and you would think distilled. Yes, it was distilled into almost 300 pages because as we went through our discussion, we felt it was imperative to include the working group documents that had all of the details, their thinking process, how they went about prioritizing. We had so much activity coming out of these groups. In order to be consistent with it, we began to require them to reduce their priorities down to 3. We had some that just said, got to get another one in. So there are no more than 4 priorities listed in these recommendations. But the value of retaining the working group documents in this report is you can go to each group and you can see other areas that didn't make the cut, but which are equally important. And at some point in the community's journey, there will be an opportunity to return to that list and pick up on some other issues of concern. We found also, as these groups were talking, let me just say, make a quick insertion. We had the 9 working groups, each commissioner co-facilitated, and the 3 co-chairs actually facilitated 3 working groups. So we each were assigned 3 working groups. And as we met with our staff, we had such tremendous staff participation from both the city and the county. These are people who took on this work in addition to all of the other work that they were doing. But as we would meet on a weekly basis and talk about what was going on in the community and how we could wrap this work up, we discovered that there was an awful lot of overlap there were areas of intersection. And so you will see, I tell people who are intimidated by the notion that there are almost 300 pages of document, that if they read the first 69 pages, they will essentially know everything that's in this report. The recommendations, there's an implementation strategy, which I'll get to in a second, and there's this major section we call cross-cutting themes. Because what we found were areas of intersection. These subjects were coming up on more than one occasion, more than one group, so they worked very diligently to organize the work so we could come up and actually highlight these intersecting themes. There are 6 of them in the document. And I will say to you that you may have seen it online. There are print copies of it, and I would ask, the city and the county really endeavored to make a hard copy available to anyone who requests it. It is easy to really comprehend the magnitude and substance of the work when you see it in this hard form. But those intersecting themes are extremely important because rather than replicate opportunity now to bring them together in one place. As you can imagine, there are very significant recommendations. There's so much work going. We had a policing group. That group was facilitated by the retired Rochester Police Department Command Officer Wayne Harris and a clinical psychologist. They had probably 25 to 30 community members who met with them on a regular basis. Sometimes they met more than once a week to examine a lot of issues. But at the same time we were doing our work, there were other groups equally focused on the area of policing. And we are somewhat, we think our recommendations fall in very considered. We did not have much discussion around defunding the police. We did have a lot of discussion around how can we reform the methodology of policing that would include how do you recruit members of police departments, including the sheriff's department. What training do you require of them once they have been identified, not only in the academy but in the field? And how do you bring the community into this hiring process? We recommend that the final decision for determining who goes forward as a police officer candidate rests with the Civil Service Commission of the City of Rochester. I would assume the same happens here in the county. The sheriff's candidates, we think that given the type of interest in this field, that we recommend a provision where there be community people brought into this final interview phase. Now, once they get on the job, we found communities that have what they call a recertification process, so that you don't get a lifetime appointment. You have to periodically go back and become recertified in order to maintain your job. This will be an area, imagine, which would be some controversy. There hasn't been a lot of discussion about it yet. But I think if you look at our recommendations on policing, you will see some differentiation between what is coming out of groups like UCLM, Impact, and the other groups that have been dealing with this subject. And so we are really waiting for that discussion to proceed. Health issues really jumped off immediately because of Daniel Prude. That group met regularly with the group that the county executive set up to really examine the entire mental health delivery system. You probably know this, I don't need to say this to you, but this is a system largely delivered by not-for-profit organizations. Health systems, but a lot of other agencies which are in the business of providing the bulk of mental health service. So about how we really reform and restructure access to these services. My feeling is, and this is my personal opinion, having had to do this for 12 years, that we should not be delivering mental health services primarily on the streets. Hey, we need to find ways to get people into mental health services long before they get into a crisis. By really providing a different model for the way these services are delivered. So we talk about community-based delivery of these services and the like. And the area that Legislator Brew was one of the co-chairs, really housing, and we looked at the area, really a local discretion, not empowered by the towns and the villages. But there were a lot of people who have been dealing with these issues for a long time. There needs to be a major discussion around that issue, and I'm sure that Steve will be able to fill you in. I want to use up all my time talking. I want to just get to the. This was not intended. I've been on too many commissions in my lifetime, in my career. A lot of earnest and hardworking people came together, produced a lot of solid work, and it went nowhere. A lot of pages. We were determined that this would not be the case here. So, in addition to setting forth the process that we followed, in addition to clearly explicating, how people were engaged in arriving at these decisions, and clearly delineating the recommendations that came out of these deliberations, also set forth an implementation strategy, which we recommend to both the mayor and the county executive. That is in 4 stages. One, that this report be reviewed to determine where the respective services of city and county can make an impact. All right. The second point is to determine which require the attention of other institutions in the community. Uh, President Carbone saw me today at lunch. I was actually having lunch with the CEO of ESNL because one of the major recommendations is how to create a capital formation strategy that will be targeted to small and minority-owned and women-owned businesses. Access to capital. And not only agreed other people who are in the field of financing to at least begin to discuss how to proceed along those lines. So there are private sector and state and federal institutional third point is to create identify those steps which are beyond the capacity of anybody yet. To really identify those, have to really come up with a different strategy. And the most critical point is to create an oversight arm to succeed, create another group which will be charged with the responsibility of overseeing the implementation of these recommendations. Now that work is proceeding. That kind of inquiry has already been undertaken. Executive, he told me that the same is happening here. Taking a little bit longer than I would like because I think, as I say, we moved with a sense of urgency. They said 6 months. We took a little longer than 6 months, but we delivered. There is a plan. It was publicized the other day that talks about various steps that are going to be taken. We are committed to ensuring that this work does not just die. Not just on the Raise Commission, but who have subject matter experts, other community representatives, brought into it, not, and I've strongly, and this thing, watching very carefully. Not that they go back and try to start from square one, but to take what is there, find out how that work can be implemented, develop a strategy for implementation. I think that is absolutely important. So we need to demonstrate to ourselves that we can move on some of these critical issues of inequity, of disparities, and of structural barriers and structural racism and the like. We need to demonstrate to ourselves, larger a world, that we have the ability to move in a forward direction. So, in closing, the way I've said to the mayor and I've said to staff, I'm at this stage ready to pass this on to the next level. I have retained one role for myself and anyone who wants to join me, and I said I will be on the agitation committee, that will keep asking the question: where is this? Why is nothing happening? Why can't we move forward? That's different than the aggravation committee. And there are some people who really like to be on the aggravation committee. No, I want to be on the agitation committee, which is a forward structured to get people off the dime and to move it forward. So I hope that I've given you some clarity into the work of this effort. I will certainly say to my colleagues who are on the commission, if you add anything, Steve and Frank, you're adding whatever you would like to add to this. And I will say this, I'm not saying it because they're here. I've said it before. I'm just absolutely pleased. Sometimes I scratch my head. Why did I decide to do this? But I'll tell you, the focus, the commitment, the dedication that our individual commission members brought to it. And I think Steve had one of the, I think he will say he had one of the tougher working groups. They came up with 13 priorities. That they were not fully participating in the process. They had not been excluded, their voice had not been heard. And I think Frank's group had similar kind of energy around. So let me start and see if anybody like, if there's any question, I'll be happy to try
to. Go ahead, Legislator Hebert.
I would say there was probably a lot of discussion in the group about that. The question then becomes, how do you put that down in this form? So I still believe that this credible report. The other thing is this. Too many times when people look at it from that angle, they get mired in trying to figure out where does responsibility lie. I think we can all honor the fact that these are societal-wide problems that need to be addressed. We recognize that if we see the inequity, if we can't offer any justification for why that inequity is there, then we ought to be committed to remove it.
Further questions for the mayor? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll now hold a public forum, Mr. Clerk.
There's no one registered. There's no one registered to address the legislature.
We'll now proceed with the consideration of motions, resolutions, and notices. Will the clerk read the next item on the agenda?
Item number 1, motion to discharge, convene, and commit, providing that file numbers 21-0219, 21-0222 through 21-0247, and 21-0249 through 21-0251 be discharged from the Public Safety, Planning and Economic Development, Recreation, Education, Intergovernmental Relations, Human Services, Environment and Public Works, and Ways and Means Committees, providing that the Legislature convene a committee of the whole, and providing that file numbers 21-0219, 21-0222 through 21-0247 and 21-0249 through 21-0251 be committed to the committee of the whole.
Moved by Legislator Brew, seconded by Legislator DeFlorio. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. This time, we'll recess the July 1st, 2021 special meeting of the Monroe County Legislature, and we will convene the committee of the whole. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Alcoffer. Mr. Alcoffer is present. Mr. Ansello. Mr. Ansello is excused. Ms. Barnhart. Ms. Barnhart is present. Mr. Baroth. Mr. Baroth is present. Mr. Baines. Mr. Baines is present. Ms. Boyce is excused. Mr. Brew. Mr. Brew is present. President Carbone.
Here.
President Carbone is present. Mr. Colby. Mr. Colby is present. Mr. Delahanty.
Here.
Mr. Delahanty is present. Mrs. DeFlorio. Mrs. DeFlorio is present. Mr. Dondorfer. Mr. Dondorfer is present. Mr. Felder is excused. Mr. Flagler Mitchell is excused. Ms. Hassman. Ms. Hassman is present. Mr. Hebert. Mr. Hebert is present. Mr. Chiafelasi. Mr. Chiafelasi is present. Ms. Lamar. Ms. Lamar is excused. Mr. Lee. Mr. Lee is present. Mr. Mafucci. Mr. Mafucci is present. Mr. Marianetti. Mr. Marianetti is present. Mr. Morelli. Mr. Morelli is present. Ms. Roman. Ms. Roman is present. Ms. Smith. Ms. Smith is present. Ms. Taylor. Ms. Taylor is present. Mr. Turp is excused. Mr. Wilcox. Mr. Wilcox is present. Mr. Wilt. Mr. Wilt is present. Mr. Udelson. Mr. Udelson is present.
The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. You have the minutes from the May 25th, 2021 meeting of the Committee of the Whole before you. They will stand approved until the clerk is notified of any changes by the end of the day. We'll now hold the public forum. Mr. Clerk.
There is no one registered to address the Committee of the Whole.
We'll now proceed with new business. Will the clerk read the next item on the agenda, please?
Item number 1, referral 21-0219, authorize an increase to the per diem rate for the Monroe County Soil and Water Conservation District Board of Directors.
Moved by Legislator Dondorfer, seconded by Legislator Wilt. Is there any discussion on this? Legislator Baroth.
Thank you.
Joe, you can call me Joe. I'm just kidding.
A couple questions about this, because I just a member or representative from the New York Grain Farm Bureau, as well as practical farmers, some of the farms for a living. So through you to anybody who might know, does the New York Grain for the Farm Bureau provide any sort of compensation for their board of directors?
Robert? Legislator Colby, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. President. Farm Bureau is a volunteer organization, and the only dollars that are given to a member is if they go to an event as a Farm Bureau member, their hotel expenses are picked up, but there's no per diem or anything for any of the board members of New York State Farm, of Monroe County Farm Bureau. There is for the state Farm Bureau directors, but not for any county.
Thank you. York range. I just wanted to make sure I was correct with that. I don't have an issue with an increase in the pay or the compensation for the committee members and the stormwater board members. I do think, however, that it needs to be a little they see it, well, they pay anything, right, and they make fun of it. And when you get up to, essentially, what, $60 for what is going to be, one meeting, I think it's a little extreme. Those meetings, they go long, but we're talking about 3 hours on the outside. That's by the third hour. But that was a joke. Okay, so I would suggest, given the fact that other similar boards do not get compensation like this, that we, instead of increasing the amount from $10 to $6 per day for the members of that board, we should increase it to $45. And the amount I came up with is essentially $15 per hour of a regular 3-hour meeting. And I think that's rather generous. And I wanted to get some logic behind that because unless I don't know what the logic was to go to $60. I think that $45 is much more reasonable. I do not, however, think that I would want to make any change to the compensation given to the president or the chairperson of that board, simply because I know that person meets more than just 12 times a year. That person is almost constantly engaged, and there should be some sort of recognition of that. It's a difficult role to fill. So, to the maker of the motion, I would ask if you're willing to accept the friendly amendment of changing the amount of $6 per day in paragraph 1 to $45 per day to the president or chair. It's at least a friendly suggestion.
President,
Yes.
Legislator Broth alluded to, I do sit on the board. Fact is, it has been many years, many compensatory increase for the individual board members and the chairman. In addition to attending the meetings, there are also additional training requirements and remote site attending requirements. So it's more than a 3-hour obligation on a month basis. Presently, we're having a difficult time attracting a couple of vacancies that we do have on the board. And, we felt that by increasing the per diem rate, alleviate some of that. At least we are hopeful that it will. And also I'd like to point out that the Monroe County Soil and Water Conservation Board, due in large part by the New York State provision, providing more mitigation resources in terms of financial dollars to the various county soil and water conservation boards. This board is in very good financial condition. They're very hardworking. The board members are very hardworking, and I understand where Legislator Broth is coming from, but from my experience on the board, I feel that the proposed rate increases for both the board members and the chairman of the board are very, very much warranted.
So I assume then that's no. That's okay. Then I am unfortunately going to have to offer the fifth amendment that I know we voted down. I wanted to be record that we would change that one number from in paragraph number 2 on the second page from $60 to $45.
I think we're deciding if we can amend in committee.
Right, I think there's discussion over what's in the specific legislative action that could be amended, not the actual narrative text of the referral.
Legislator Colby?
Other dis,
I think the appropriate amendment would be to offer the amendment to specific legislative action 1 to strike $60 and replace it with 45. Is that, okay.
Second to the amendment? Any discussion on the amendment? Legislator Colby?
study done looking at the neighboring counties, soil and water boards, and what they were being compensated for. And I believe this was in line with what our neighboring counties were being, how the boards, isn't that one of the ways that they came up with this number, Steve?
President to Legislator Colby, yes, they did baseline against similar counties. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but they did do that.
Legislator Colby?
And so with that in mind, I think we should stay competitive or be comparable to our neighboring counties. That's why I would not support this.
Any further discussion on the amendment? Legislator Baroff?
I don't mind there being some form of competition, but I do want it to be relatively minimal. I want to be this is something that we want people to be doing above and beyond what they were going to be doing during their business day. I recognize the fact that the board wants to be comparable to other boards, but I also recognize the fact that this is going to be really an issue for the board. I mean, they should not be so concerned about how much getting paid to be at a meeting once a month. I don't mind the compensate for that, but I'd be a little embarrassed if I was on the board right now and this is going forth. And by the way, I want to be clear, as it states in the referral, that has nothing to do with our colleague, Drew. He didn't get any compensation for this at all.
I was going to bring that up. Legislator Brew is not compensated.
I do, I do have, I recognize the fact that it hasn't changed since 1950.
Legislator Baines?
President to Legislator Baines, that would be, per diem would be per meeting attendance. No, it would not. No, it would just be the meeting times which typically occur the last Monday of the month between the hours of 8 a.m. and 12 p.m. They vary between 3 and 3.5 hour meetings, but there's no compensation outside that time frame. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the amendment? Legislator Colby?
Just to declare, my brother serves on this.
Legislator Mafucci?
President, just one quick question again to a comparative study was done.
Yes, the counties, Legislator Bafucci, that they did baseline those comparable per diem rates. I don't know those counties, but that was one of the first things that the board members asked the director to do prior to determining what rates should be established. Coupled with the fact that I think I remember these numbers correctly, that there has not been a legislative approved rate increase for the soil and water
Any further discussion on the amendment? Roll call vote?
On the amendment, Mr. Brew.
No.
Brew votes no. Mr. Felder is excused. Mr. Lee. Mr. Lee votes no. Mr. Alcoffer. Mr. Alcoffer votes no. Mr. Ansello. Ansello is excused. Ms. Barnhart. Ms. Barnhart votes yes. Mr. Baroth. Mr. Baroth votes yes. Mr. Baines. Mr. Baines votes yes. Ms. Boyce is excused. Mr. Colby. Colby votes no. Mr. Delahanty.
No.
Mr. Delahanty votes no. Mrs. DeFlorio. Mrs. DeFlorio votes no. Mr. Dondorfer. Mr. Dondorfer votes no. Mr. Flagler Mitchell is excused. Ms. Hassman. Ms. Hassman votes yes. Mr. Hebert. Mr. Hebert votes no. Mr. Chiafalasi. Mr. Chiafalasi votes no. Ms. Lamar is excused. Mr. Mafucci. Mr. Mafucci votes yes. Mr. Marionetti. Mr. Marionetti votes no. Mr. Morelli. Mr. Morelli votes yes. Ms. Roman. Ms. Roman votes yes. Ms. Smith. Ms. Smith votes no. Ms. Taylor. Ms. Taylor votes no. Mr. Turp. Mr. Turp is excused. Mr. Wilcox. Mr. Wilcox votes yes. Mr. Wilt. Mr. Wilt votes no. Mr. Udelson. Mr. Udelson votes yes. President Carbone.
No.
President Carbone votes no. 9-14, the motion fails.
Any further discussion on the main referral? We need a roll call vote on that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next.
Item number 2, referral 21-0222, authorize a contract with DataWorks Plus LLC for a fingerprint and mugshot capture and data exchange software system and installation services for law enforcement.
Second.
Who moved that? Legislator Morelli, seconded by,
Legislator Delahanty.
thank you. Is there any discussion on this?
Two 21-0222.
Yes. Legislator Dondorfer.
Software being installed, and is there going to be any other expenses brought before the legislature to support the software on an ongoing basis?
Through the chair. The software will be installed in the county through our IS department, and we will be sharing it with all of the police agencies. And what was your other question? I'm sorry. Through the chair, there will be a maintenance, but it is usually procured with a sole source because nobody else can really do the annual maintenance on a specific software.
Our current standards not meet industry standards?
Through the chair, being an officer, you probably know we have a Morris system, which is the Monroe Rochester identification system, and it's very old and is beyond its life support for maintenance. So if anything does go down, excuse me, it's very difficult to find support. The current vendor does not want to support it past the spring of next year. Through the chair, there was 3 that applied. One didn't really meet our needs, and we did demos with 2 of them. One of the things, just to let you know, there wasn't a lot because they have to be certified by the Division of Criminal Justice Services, and there's very few agency software vendors that are.
Any further discussion? Legislator Hebert.
Through the chair, it's DataWorks Plus is the vendor.
Legislator Hebert, microphone, please, for everybody else. Thank you.
Through the chair, that is correct. Through the chair, there is, training is included in this contract for the system. Just to be clear, this piece is only for the fingerprint and mugshot, so it's not real technical. There's not a lot of training that's going to be needed. And I mean, we will be buying equipment and that this is just for the software piece of it. The chair, that is correct. Through the chair, that sentence refers to kind of like you never know what national standard, what's going to change, the mandates and stuff, that if they change in the future, we assume that this will accommodate that. Through the chair, right now, only county agencies are on it. If you consider the county a region, it is regional, but we could potentially expand to other counties. It's just a future prediction. So this software has been, they have installed it in other places. We're a little unique in New York State, but this company has partnered with our current vendor, software IDEMIA, to rewrite the way they send it, the Morris package that we have now. So there's some experience on that end as they're sharing the files. Chair, that is correct.
Thank you, Legislator Hebert. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next, 3.
Referral 21-0223, acceptance of a grant from the New York State Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services for the fiscal year 2019 Technical Rescue and Urban Rescue and Rescue Grant Program.
Second.
Moved by Legislator Morelli, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion on this? None, all in favor say aye. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see it. Sorry. Who are the regional partners for this?
Good evening, Steve Shalabo with the Fire Bureau. Through the chair, the regional partners for this grant are the County of Monroe, which consists of all of the 35 fire agencies that we support, the City of Rochester, and the Genesee County Emergency Services Unit. It's fully funded by the New York State Department of Homeland Security. There are no county dollars from the County of Monroe that are allocated as part of this program.
Any further discussion? None, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next, 4.
Item number 4, referral 21-0224, acceptance of a grant from the New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services for the Raise the Age legislation and authorize an intermunicipal agreement with the Rochester City School District.
Second.
Moved by Legislator Morelli, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Legislator Baroff. I couldn't hear you.
Through the chair, from the period of October 2018 to September 2019, when the law was first implemented, and it only included 16-year-olds, there were 52 felony arrests. 33 of them were removed from the criminal court system to the family court system. There were 10 juvenile offender arrests. One of those was removed. So overall, there were 62 felony arrests and 34 removed to family court. From the period of October 2019 to September 2020, which was full implementation, including 16 and 17-year-olds, there were 13 juvenile offender arrests, 6 removed to family court. There were 92 adolescent offender arrests, 63 removed to family court. So overall, there were 105 felony arrests for 16 and 17-year-olds. 105 overall arrests for juvenile offenders and adolescent offenders, and 69 of those were removed to family court. Through the chair, the numbers are slightly different, but I don't have the exact totals. Through the chair, yes. Through the chair, it's an embedded position within probation, and the employee is an administrator at the Rochester City School District. So they will assist youth who are in secure detention and are re-entering the district. If they're not in detention and they are active with probation, they'll facilitate appropriate educational placement, identify any barriers to school attendance. They'll collaborate with whatever school program may be appropriate, and plan to reduce truancy. Through the chair, the administrative specialist and education liaison does work directly with the youth, but does not provide counseling services. We do have a variety of counseling and mental health services available for identified youth. Through the chair, we work closely with all schools in the area, and so probation or service providers or whoever may be appropriate, we will work closely with schools and keep track of school performance, school attendance, any issues in school, and utilize other services available to mitigate any issues. Through the chair, correct.
Access to resources that are more available outside the city than inside the city simply because there's a greater number of people working on those cases, or are you very confident that there's all the same resources and timeliness of services that provide inside the city and provide outside the city?
Through the chair, excluding the specific administrative specialists and education liaison, we're confident that our services are provided within the city that these services provided are as available and as expeditious as are provided outside of the city.
Legislator Hebert.
Through the chair, we're projecting 150 youth for the upcoming year, which falls in line with the number of youth served in prior years.
Any further discussion? None, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next.
1-0225, amend the 2021-2026 capital improvement program, the 2021 capital budget to add a project entitled Public Safety Voice and Digital Paging System Refresh and authorize an interfund transfer.
Second.
By Legislator Morelli, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion?
Legislator Smith.
Legislator Smith.
Through the president, are there any additional costs not covered by this upgrade, like hardware support or training?
Through the chair, the money will, the systems are covered with that. There's no incremental training costs that would be required.
Any further discussion? None, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 6, referral 21-0226, amend resolution 405 of 2017 as amended by resolution 88 of 2020, resolution 254 of 2020, and resolution 409 of 2020 to increase the contract with Prime Care Medical of New York, Inc.
Very good. Moved by Legislator Morelli, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? None, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next.
Item number 7, referral 21-0227, acceptance of a grant from the New York State Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services for the fiscal year 2019 Explosive Detection K-9 Team Grant Program Enhancement.
Moved by Legislator Morelli, seconded by Legislator Delahanty and Legislator Dondorfer. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next.
Item number 8, referral 21-0228, acceptance of a grant from the New York State Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services for the fiscal year 2019 Tactical Team Grant Program.
Second.
By Legislator Morelli, seconded by Legislator Delahanty and Legislator Dondorfer. Is there any discussion on this? Legislator Hebert.
Through the president, I was not given any explanation, but I do know there are more tactical teams in the state, so maybe that's what the reduction was from.
You. Any further discussion on this? None, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next.
Item number 9, referral 21-0229, acceptance of a grant from the New York State Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services for the fiscal year 2019 Bomb Squad Initiative Grant Program / Homeland Security State Homeland Security Program, Office of the Sheriff.
Moved by Legislator Morelli, seconded by Legislator Delahanty and Legislator Dondorfer. Any discussion? None, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item carries. Next.
Item number 10, referral 21-0230, acceptance of a grant from the New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services for the District Attorney's Office, the Office of Sheriff, and the Department of Public Safety, Office of Probation, and Community Corrections for the Gun-Involved Violence Elimination Partnership.
Second.
Moved by Legislator Morelli, seconded by Legislator Delahanty, Legislator Dondorfer. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item, 11.
Item number 11, referral 21-0231, acceptance of the aid to localities grant from the New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services for the Office of the District Attorney and the Public Defender.
Second.
By legislator Morelli, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Legislator Dondorfer. Any discussion on this? None. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Next.
Item number 12, referral 21-0232, acceptance of a grant from the Monroe County Industrial Development Corporation.
Second.
Moved by legislator Morelli, seconded by legislator Delahanty. And legislator Wilt. Okay, any discussion on this? Legislator Hebert.
Through the chair, I've been here 7 years and it hasn't been increased in that time. I can't tell you where it started, but I know for the last 7 years it's been the same. Through the chair, I believe it is because some of the staff that work in that department are now actually MCIDC employees. So the staffing level should be approximately the same, while MCIDC has given us other ways to help support the programs. Through the chair, I must not have been clear in my first answer. I don't know that it is the same amount of people that are being funded through MCIDC because MCIDC has actually gotten employees to take some of the work. But if you would like, I can ask for a better breakdown.
Any further discussion on this? None. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next.
Item number 13, referral 21-0233, classification of action, designation of lead agency and determination of significance pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act for additions to the Western Monroe County Agricultural District number 5.
President.
Moved by legislator Dondorfer, seconded by legislator Wilt. Did somebody move over here too? Oh, legislator Morelli moved. Any discussion? None? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 14, referral 21-0234, authorize additions to the Western Monroe County Agricultural District number 5.
Moved by legislator Wilt, moved by legislator Morelli, seconded by legislator Dondorfer. Getting confusing today. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor. Oh, I'm sorry, legislator Burhoff.
Through the president, the actions taken pursuant to 21-233 will not be completed until this honorable body passes the resolution at the July meeting. Once that's done, seeker will be complete for this action.
Thank you. I was having a
Correct. It's for your review and to take a hard look pursuant to the seeker regulations. And then subject to your approval, the resolution will be passed in July.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries.
Item number 15, referral 21-0235, acceptance of a donation of services from the Genesee Transportation Council for a countywide active transportation plan.
Second.
By legislator Wilt, moved by legislator Morelli, and seconded by Legislator
Delahanty.
Delahanty. Okay, any discussion? Legislator Hebert.
Through you to the president, excuse me. There is not a prior county active-wide transportation plan. This plan is a outcome of the larger Monroe County Comprehensive Plan, and active transportation is a component of that, and this is a sub-area plan of that.
Legislator Burrough.
Through the chair, it will take longer. We expect this project to be completed before the end of 2022.
Legislator DeFlorio. Yes. Microphone, please.
Through the chair, this is meant to build on the existing plans in many of the communities in Monroe County. Currently, there are approximately 10 or more communities with similar active transportation plans or other planning efforts related to active transportation planning.
Legislator Baines.
Absolutely. Through the chair, active transportation is a means of getting around that is generally powered by your own human activity. So this is generally primarily walking and bicycling, but nowadays also includes things such as e-scooters and e-bicycles. It generally also relies on public transportation because most public transit users are multimodal, meaning they use both public transit and another form of movement, walking or bicycling to get to their destination, since it is not A to B type of transportation.
Legislator Colby.
Mr. President, does this include maybe looking at the addition of designated bike paths instead of just a road, maybe a bike path similar to what town Webster has along 104?
Through the chair, it is premature to say exactly what will be in this planning study. However, generally things like that are included because you can use an off-road trail to get to a destination, which is the purpose of an active transportation plan, to connect destinations.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 16, referral 21-0236, acceptance of a grant from Health Research, Inc. for the Public Health Emergency Preparedness Program.
Move it, Mr. President.
By Legislator Smith. Moved by Legislator Morelli. Seconded by Legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion?
Legislator Smith.
Legislator Smith.
Through the president, was this plan intended to address emergency health situations like COVID-19 pandemic?
Through the president, Mike Sayers from Public Health, yes, it was.
Through the president, was there a plan in place that had been practiced and drilled in early of 2019?
Through the president, yes. Every year we've been doing drills and exercises to support the distribution of medical countermeasures. In this case, it was COVID-19 vaccine.
Through the president, was this plan used during the COVID-19 pandemic?
Through the president, yes, it was, in various points of dispensing sites throughout the county and the city.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next.
Item number 17, referral 21-0237, amend Resolution 380 of 2018 as amended by Resolution 214 of 2019 and Resolution 50 of 2021 to amend and increase the contract with Reliant Staffing Systems, Inc., DBA Career Start in the Monroe County Department of Public Health.
Move it, Mr. President.
Moved by legislator Smith, Morelli, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Any discussion? Legislator Baroff.
This is Kathy Hiltunen from the Department of Public Health. These funds are used for temporary nurses to help staff primarily our COVID efforts at this time. Through the President, the services provided in 2021 are different than 2020 because we received vaccine the 4th week in December. So in 2020, both the full-time nurses and some temp nurses primarily supported the isolation and quarantine efforts. In 2021, we shifted our focus so that we could do mass vaccination, which was more resource intensive. These additional funds are to continue to pay for the temporary nursing services and clinical staff that is primarily for COVID, but also for our other clinics such as IMS and TB and the STD work that we do.
Further discussion? None, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next.
Item number 8. Item number 18, referral 21-0238, authorize a contract with National Medical Services, Inc., DBA NMS Labs to provide toxicology laboratory services for the Monroe County Office of the Medical Examiner.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Smith, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion?
Legislator Smith.
Smith, you have the floor.
Through the President to the administration, why are these services required?
Through the President, Bob Zerby, Chief Investigator with the Medical Examiner's Office. These services are required to address the incredible spike in toxicology-related determinations and cause and manner of death with the current opioid crisis.
Through the President, does Monroe County have a shortage of personnel through the Medical Examiner's Office or space in our facilities?
Through the President, we have actually a very good space at this point. We recently completed renovations. Staffing-wise, not so much. We do have difficulty obtaining and retaining competent staff at our office.
Mr. President, why is NMS Labs the sole source?
Again, through the President, the NMS was designated as a sole source. Basically, the level of services they provide to us, as well as including the necessary certifications to be accredited as the laboratories that are suitable and equivalent to what our own laboratory has.
Senator DeFlorio.
Yes, thank you. Sorry. President to the administration.
Through the President, so off the top of my head, pathology-wise, which is right at the top, which is a huge problem, not just in Monroe County, but in the United States as a whole, we are lacking 2. So basically, with the 1,000+ cases that have to physically be reviewed as far as just actual autopsy work, this isn't comparing what looks to be trending towards 4,000 total cases. We have 2 doctors looking at that, which is completely out of control. National Association of Medical Examiner Standards essentially want doctors doing 350 cases a year, so we're just a bit over. Nationwide, however, understand that roughly there are 1,200 medical examiner positions, seats for medical examiners with 800 physicians to fill them. So this isn't just a Monroe County problem. This is a United States problem. The education is grueling. You go to a regular college, you go to medical school, you do residency. So that's about 4 years, 4 years, 4 years. And then you could step out making a reasonable amount of money. The offer for forensic pathology is an additional year of training, which generally come out and make roughly half of what you would have made without that additional training. It's kind of a hard sell. Investigative wise, we generally hold our own. We do have folks come in and then folks go out. So it's difficult to keep the training level out. We are short. We have 3 vacancies right now in positions in the investigative staff. So that's the investigative world. These are the people who are 24/7 actually going into the field. We are vacant in a autopsy technician spot. These assistant pathologists. We have 4 positions, 3 of which are currently filled. And in the toxicology laboratory, there are, of the 5 positions for toxicologists, there are currently 2 seated.
Legislator Hebert.
Through the president, what we would look to is likely to evaluate the salaries to become comparable with other offices throughout New York State and potentially the U.S. The market in the good old days, obviously, the market was kind of local, but people travel now. So we really have, it's a national not competitive type of environment through the president.
What is what would a competitive salary be?
To you, Mr. President, I'm not sure I understand the question. Are you looking for an actual dollar amount?
Yeah. What's a competitive salary?
Generally, for a toxicologist, what we've kind of seen is in the $70,000 to $75,000 range is someone who is coming out of school with the necessary education, looking for, a career field essentially in forensic toxicology.
Else, Legislator Hebert? Any other questions? Any other discussion? Seeing none, Legislator Mafucci.
I just want to clarify. So the issue of finding people to actually salaries is one issue, and then preparation for the job. Is that correct?
Through the president, I'd say that's correct.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 19, referral 21-0239, acceptance of grants from New York State Office for the Aging for the Consolidated Appropriations Act grant, an additional 2021 Title III grant funding, and amend Resolution 418 of 2020, as amended by Resolution 123 of 2021, for authorization to contract for Monroe County Office for the Aging programs in 2021 to 2022.
Move it, Mr. President.
Moved by Legislator Smith, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next.
Item number 20, referral 21-0240, classification of action, determination of significance pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act for the sale of county-owned property located on Lake Road in the town of Webster.
By Legislator Dondorfer, seconded by Legislator Wilt. Is there any discussion? None, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next.
Item number 20. Item number 21, referral 21-0241, authorize the sale of county-owned property located on Lake Road in the town of Webster.
Move it, Mr. President.
Moved by Legislator Delahanty, seconded by Legislator Hebert. Is there any discussion? None, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oh, never mind. Legislator Hebert, I didn't see it.
To the President, I don't have the assessed value with me, but I certainly can get it before the full ledge meeting.
Microphone.
Through the president, yes.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item, 22.
Item number 22. Number 22, referral 21-0242, classification of action, determination of significance pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act for the abandonment and sale of county-owned surplus property known as right-of-way at the intersection of Brooks Avenue Extension and Behan Road adjacent to property having an address at 2061 Chili Avenue located in the town of Gates.
President.
By legislator Dondorfer, seconded by legislator Wilt. Is there any discussion? Legislator Dondorfer.
President, to the administration, why are there no tax ID numbers or any other specific?
Through the president, because this is considered right away. Right away has no tax ID number.
Legislator DeFlorio.
Microphone, please.
President, to the administration, but for our whole meeting, can we get an actual description of this property, a survey, kind of hard to tell what we're authorizing.
The president, yes.
The roads that are mentioned.
He said yes. You got what you want.
Sorry, I just wanted to clarify what I was looking for, so thank you.
Are you clear? Looking for? Okay, very good. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 23, referral 21-0243, abandonment and sale of a portion of Brooks Avenue Extension and Behan Road right-of-way in the town of Gates.
Move it, Mr. President.
Moved by legislator Delahanty, seconded by legislator Hebert. Is there any discussion? Legislator Baines.
President, to the real estate department. Did this sale generate a bidding war?
But is it a real question or just
Kind of
humor?
is. I mean, are we finding our excess property is more valuable than it historically?
Through the president, the way the law dictates that you sell excess right away, it has to be abandoned to the adjoining owners. The purchaser that's indicated in the referral is the adjoiner on both sides, so there is no one else that could purchase the property.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next.
Item number 24, referral 21-0244, authorize a contract with the EF&P Group LLC, DBA Stonebridge Business Partners to perform professional auditing services specific to fast-forward Monroe contracts between Monroe County and local businesses.
Move it, Mr. President.
Moved by legislator Delahanty. Somebody? Legislator Morelli, seconded by legislator Hebert. Is there any discussion? Legislator Hebert. Microphone, please, Legislator Hebert. That's okay. I forget sometimes myself. Very rarely, but once in a while.
Grants under audit in this referral is approximately $20 million. Mr. President, if memory serves me correctly, it was approximately 1,800 individual businesses. Mr. President, it is somewhat of an indirect requirement. The federal government requires that the expenditures be supported by appropriate documentation. This is a means of gathering enough documentation to assess whether the program is adequately supported. Mr. President, we are proposing a sample audit approach in this referral. Mr. President, data has been given or will be given to Stonebridge business partners of all the recipients for them to take a random sample based on governmental auditing standards. Mr. President, I do not know that.
Further discussion? None, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next.
Item number 25, referral 21-0245, amend the 2021-2026 capital improvement program, the 2021 capital budget to add a project entitled Monroe County Facilities LED lighting replacement, authorize financing for the project, and authorize an energy performance contract with Centrica Business Solutions Services, Inc. for lighting efficiency upgrades for county buildings.
President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Dondorfer, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Legislator Hebert.
Through the president, the selected vendor was the only provider that did that work. Through the president, this vendor was selected through an RFP process following the county procurement policies. There were 8 respondents, and Centrica was selected, and they were committed to do the project. And as part of their project responsibilities, they did the investigation and the analysis of the buildings for the county. Through the president, there's many advantages to this project. Besides saving $300,000 a year, which equates to the approximate 10-year payback, there's also, it's a very green project as well. It reduces greenhouse gas by about 2,000 metric tons. It's same as removing 575 cars off the road. So as well as saving money, it's being green. Through the president, annually for the term of the bond, the vendor has to audit the energy savings and guarantee it. They physically will go out and measure the electricity used on a sample number of fixtures to verify we're receiving the energy savings that we're supposed to. And if we do not, they are to take corrective action. And this audit occurs annually for the duration of the bond. To the President, you're remembering that correctly, with the addition that they're physically going to measure the electricity used. So the variable that comes into play, there has to be some assumptions. As we're sitting in this room, the lights are on, obviously, when it's being occupied. We meet in this room not every day, so the lights aren't on every day. And it's uncertain the amount, how long a light is going to stay on, so assumptions had to be made. What the fact is when the lights are on, we are saving energy. So the audit confirms that the energy that we're supposed to be saving, that we're drawing, is in true fact. I believe you're correct.
You. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next.
Item number 26, referral 21-0246, amend resolution 133 of 2016 to amend and increase the contract with the Finger Lakes Performing Provider Systems, Inc. for delivery system reform incentive payment program projects, amend the 2021-2026 capital improvement program, the 2021 capital budget, to add projects entitled Resident Courtyard and Friendship Place at Monroe Community Hospital, and authorize the appropriation of revenue.
President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Dondorfer, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 27, referral 21-0247, amend the 2021-2026 capital improvement program, the 2021 capital budget to add a project entitled Space Utilization and Renovation of City Place Project, authorize an interfund transfer, and authorize a contract with LaBelle Associates DPC for professional design services for the Space Utilization and Renovation of City Place Project.
President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Dondorfer, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion?
Through the President, could you repeat the question, please? Through the President, in part, it was part of the 2017 study. The staff was interviewed to determine the size of their needs. Through the President, we'll have to take a holistic look at all the needs of the prospective occupants of the space, just to verify we're going to meet everyone's needs. So will have to be verification. Through the President, as we proceed with any project, before we do final design or even get into design documents, we will sit down with the occupants of the space to vet out their needs to ensure we capture what is needed so we get it on the plan so it's properly bid out. Through the president, we did the study, we met with individuals, so we're confident in that. But prior to proceeding with final design, we would round up and meet with the individuals again to ensure we're going to capture all the information we need to incorporate into the final designs.
Any further discussion? Legislator Udelson.
Mr. President, the project itself is essentially the same. It's the funding mechanism that is different.
Any further discussion? Legislator Hebert.
That is correct, Mr. President.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next.
Item number 28, referral 21-0249, acceptance of a grant from the New York State Office of Mental Health for the PFC Dwyer Veteran Peer-to-Peer Support Program. Authorize a contract with Compeer Inc. and authorize an appropriation transfer.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
By Legislator Smith. Legislator Morelli. Seconded by Legislator Alcoffer. Delahanty. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item carries. Next.
Item number 29, referral 21-0250, amend Resolution 289 of 2010 as amended by Resolution 437 of 2014, Resolution 270 of 2015, Resolution 335 of 2016, Resolution 462 of 2017, Resolution 103 of 2019, Resolution 405 of 2019, and Resolution 310 of 2020 to extend the license and operating agreement with the Seneca Park Zoo Society, Inc.
Moved by Legislator Alcoffer, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next.
Item number 30, referral 21-0251, authorize a contract with McFarland Johnson, Inc. for grant application services for the Frederick Douglass Greater Rochester International Airport pursuant to the New York State-sponsored Upstate Airport Economic Development and Revitalization Competition.
Second.
Moved by Legislator Dondorfer, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Legislator DeFlorio.
This is a term contractor that was chosen, that was done earlier in the year through the RFP process. And then what we do is bring back every specific contract for your approval. So originally there was an RFP to pick the 3 term contractors. Does that make sense?
So they're
Through the president, that's absolutely correct.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next. No next. For other matters, I believe we have a member of the administration present to brief legislators and answer questions related to recent events at the Children's Detention Center. This briefing was requested by Legislator Jackie Smith, Chairwoman of the Human Services Committee.
Mr. President, I want to thank Commissioner Wright and any other representatives from the Department of Human Services for agreeing to come to talk to members of the legislature on recent reports of fights at the Children's Detention Center, especially as it pertains to the staffing and training of those employees. I know the reporting of these incidents are a concern to the legislature, but also to Monroe County residents, not only for the health and well-being of those injured, but for the youth who are housed in this location. We appreciate any information you can provide us this evening. I would like to ask if you have a presentation or would like to go right to questioning.
Mr. President, if we can go right through questioning.
I have a few questions just pertaining around that topics. Through the president, currently, how many employees are there at the Youth Detention Center who have direct responsibility for handling inmate security and transportation?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. President, presently, the organizational chart over at the Children's Detention Center includes one director, two assistant directors. We have what we call rapid response youth detention workers, specifically to that serve our raise the age population. We also have 33 full-time youth detention workers and 11 per diem youth detention workers. As far as support staff, we have one social work supervisor, one caseworker, one supervising youth detention worker, and a number of per diems that we continue to try to fill.
Through the president, how many inmates are currently being housed at the Youth Detention Center?
Through you, Mr. President, if I could just make a correction, they're considered adolescent offenders, juvenile defenders, and juvenile offenders. Presently, our most recent census, apologies. Our total bed capacity as a whole is 31. Presently, we have 16 in our specialized unit, 6 adolescent male offenders, 8 juvenile offenders, males, and 2 adolescent female offenders. We also have 9 adolescent offenders that are currently placed at our Monroe County Jail in a specialized unit.
What has it been through the president to the commissioner? What has been the lowest enrollment, I guess, there in the past?
Unfortunately, our census has been at capacity at 31. We recently went into an agreement with Office of Children and Family Services to reduce our census, which I must say is on paper, to about 25. But unfortunately, due to the laws, we continue to get youth remanded there through criminal court.
President, Commissioner Wright, if you don't mind, I just want to go back when you had listed off the people who work at the Youth Detention Center. Did you mention the rapid response team?
Yes.
You did.
Yes.
How many was that? Do you mind repeating?
Presently, we have 10. Thank you.
And through the president to Commissioner Wright, how many people work per shift at the Youth Detention?
Yes, through you, Mr. President, it all depends. So at this point, depending on if we were talking specifically about the specialized unit, we have a 7-to-1 ratio there. Right now, we are also in agreement with the Office of Children and Family Services under a modified plan, as staffing has been a continual issue. Staff and utilize our per diems. So as a whole, it would depend, I would say, day to day, but no less than about 7 to 9 youth detention.
President to the administration. Why is there a staffing issue? Are there?
Yes, through you, Mr. President, I think it's a lot of layers there. Our county exec has worked diligently to help us with some recruitment, including an increase quickly. It's not just the funding. I think if I could just speak anecdotally, it would possibly be the location of the facility being kind of out of the way for many staff. There's no, if I could say, public transportation. I also think that it's contributed to what we're seeing right now across the board as far as trying to hire staff. As we see hospital, hotels, everyone is struggling to get the workforce back in. And then lastly, I would say that probably just a difficult position.
Through the president, what is the, I know you kind of probably answered this before, but that ratio of youths that are there and security personnel, is that still that kind of 7-to-1 that you were mentioning?
Yeah, through you, Mr. President, there's a difference between the youth detention workers and our security personnel, right? So we have security that is, we contract with through Securitas that manage our front gates. So there's different roles and responsibilities, if I can say, in comparison if we need to.
Is there an industry standard that you follow when it comes to either security or, I'm sorry, what was the other title that you used? Detention workers. Is there a industry standard that you follow, and what is that standard?
We follow, through you, Mr. President, we follow the standards that are set forth by New York State Office of Children and Family Services and corrections as far as our operating certificate and licensing for the detention center.
Through the president to the administration, the youth detention workers are, tell me again, youth that are there?
Through you, Mr. President, exactly that. It's one of our unique facilities that we have under the department 24/7. So they are there to maintain, to supervise, to do programming with the youth, to facilitate any educational, mental health, as the support there, to your point around security, around transitions, meals, the whole gamut, just the daily milieu on the
So much. And through the president to the administration, what are the youth detention center support staff equipped with if they had to restrain?
Mr. President, their training that is set forth by New York State, and they also are allowed to carry what we call mechanics and simplistic handcuffs.
Through the president, of the youth that are being held there at the detention center, how many of them have been charged with violent crimes?
I would say the classifications, right? So we have our adolescent offenders who between the ages of 16 and 17. At this point, I would say all of them, felony violent crimes, including assault, murder, gun possession. And then in the other units, we have our juvenile defenders and juvenile delinquents, lower crimes, but they're probably on a shorter stint on maybe some petty larceny crimes, things of that nature. But our secured specialized detention, those are all violent felony crimes.
And through back to, I think you had stated that your max is at 31 for youth being in detention. Are there any plans to increase the capacity of that?
Mr. President, no, not at this time.
Through the president, before raise the age was passed, would youth offenders charged with violent crimes be held at the youth detention center or the Monroe County Jail?
Mr. President, they would be housed in a special unit at the Monroe County Jail.
President to the administration, are the youth detention center security personnel equipped with the same resources to handle the youth that turn violent as like Monroe County jail deputies would be?
You, Mr. President, no, they are not.
And I know you stated the type of training they go through is through New York State. Is there any other type of training that they receive that would be similar to what the deputies would receive?
To you, Mr. President, that is in the works that we're working on concurrently. We are very blessed to have a partnership with the Monroe County Sheriff's Department. So they are coming in to do some assessments, some training of the staff to kind of supplement some of those trainings that we get from the state through their observations with being on campus with us. So we're hoping to utilize those additional training resources going.
President, to the administration, are there any rules or regulations that prohibit Monroe County Sheriff jail deputies from assisting with security at the youth detention center?
To you, Mr. President, there's no rules and regulations built into the legislation. The Monroe County Sheriff's Department can come in and provide that enhanced staffing, do some assessments around security, assist our staff. The only difference is that per our regulations, our staff are not allowed to utilize tasers, pepper spray, batons, things of that nature.
President, to the administration, do you think that enacting of the raise the age has led to the increase of violent offenders being housed at the youth detention center that would normally be held at the previous?
Yes, do you, Mr. President? I agree, yes.
Through the president to the administration, understanding that violent incidences are always a risk. In your opinion, what does the youth detention center need to ensure that violent incidents such as the ones on June 20th resulting in injury of one of the workers and the weekend of May 22nd, which resulted in the hospitalization of several workers and sheriff deputies, are less likely to occur?
To you, Mr. President, I think that's the question of the day, right? I would say that we are not ignorant to the violence that we see in our community right now, right? So what we're seeing is a direct correlation of that violence now at our detention center between the gang activity, the rival retaliation, the intake of the youth that we're currently serving is all contributing to a lot of the violence that we've exhibited over the last couple of months. So it's a constant, right? And then when you think about the raise the age legislation and the phasing of 16-year-olds, and then the following year, the 17-year-olds, it's not just unique to Monroe County. This is a issue that state detention centers are struggling with statewide.
So from what what I'm hearing is obviously you already have some additional training starting in the works with the Sheriff's Department, which I think is great. Any other type of staffing that you're looking at? So really kind of putting that plan in place. Thank you, Commissioner Wright, for being here tonight, responding to tonight's question. I appreciate you taking the time to help us better understand the youth detention center a little bit better.
Thank you
I
so
yield the
much.
floor.
Legislator Colby.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. President, just for clarification. Earlier on, you said we have 31 beds we're certified for. I heard you right. You said you applied to have it lowered to 25. Why were you looking? Is that correct?
To you, Mr. President, no. Our current operating certificate is at 31. That's the capacity we have at the detention center. As a result of the most recent incidents, we've been working with New York State Office of Children and Family Services to reduce that census down to 25 while we concurrently work on stabilizing staffing and safety.
You're self-imposed 25, or is the state lower?
To you, Mr. President, it's through the state.
Lower it to 25 through you, Mr. President?
To you, Mr. President, if I could just explain a little bit conceptually on paper, It's lowered at 25. Unfortunately, just due to the increase of youth we're seeing coming through criminal court, once the youth are remanded to Monroe County Detention Center through the court system, we are obligated to place them. So if I may say, with the assistance of the state, it looks nice that they reduced our operating certificate to 25, but realistically, as youth enter through the criminal system, we are going to be mandated to place them. I think the state was really kind to work with us with the hopes that a reduction in the operating certificate would give us a little reprieve to get our staffing patterns up and, to enhance some of the other programming things that we're doing. But the reality is that we're pretty much running a 31-bed facility. To you, Mr. President, they count in our 31. To you, Mr. President, we have youth placed with us from out of county.
You have to accept them no matter what, if they come from.
To you, Mr. President, we would get a call from the state requesting that we take the youth. As I noted before, detention facilities are at capacity statewide. So we take out-of-county youth, and if our beds are full, we reach out. We are a regional facility to our sister, if I could say, facilities across the state, and we make arrangements to have even Monroe County youth placed out of county. It all depends on where we're at with census capacity.
Approximately on a daily basis.
Through you, Mr. President, if I had to estimate at this point right now, I know we're probably at 10% with out-of-county youth as we are working with the state to move some of those youth back to their counties of origin, again, if a bed is available. Through you, Mr. President, yes, we do. To you, Mr. President, no, it's based on our cost report. To you, Mr. President, yes.
Legislator Hebert.
Question?
I'm trying to ask.
Yeah, well, through you, Mr. President, they are housed in different locations on the campus. So per our regulations, we can't mix populations. So our JDJOs are placed separately than our adolescent offenders, our AOs. Through you, Mr. President, I would assume that there's circumstances during passing, during transitions that they may. It's our goal to as much as possible, not mix those populations, even when they're receiving schooling and additional programming. We tend to keep those youth separate. For you, Mr. President, I can get you the information on the staff that are out on workman's comp. We also have staff out on FMLA. I can also get you a breakdown of the positions we have allocated in our budget and vacancies at this time, if you don't mind. Yes, through you, Mr. President, County Executive Bello wrote up a nice letter to New York State. We just recently had a phone call, conference call with New York State with Commissioner Sheila Poole at the Office of Children and Family Services to begin discussions. I must say, raise the age legislation is pretty new. I think philosophically, right, no one couldn't disagree that they want to put the 16 and 17-year-olds in adult jails. I think now that we know a little bit more, since the admission and the implementation of RTA, the state is opening up that opportunity to have some discussions on some alternatives, including supplementing trainings with the Sheriff's Department as they're looking across statewide on some different models that they could put forth. Yeah.
Done? Legislator Hasman, you're up.
Efforts that are going on at the facility for the juvenile offenders?
Through you, Mr. President, they receive mental health services, they receive educational services. Through the proposal for the 2021 budget, I put forth 2 additional positions, which we call youth engagement specialists, to work more intensively with the youth at the facility, including youth that are being discharged, to reduce recidivism, to do some additional supports and connections to vocational educational services, and do some concurrent planning around discharge at day 1, which includes to make sure that they have resources, right? Because at many times when youth are released from the detention center, we see them at the other side of our system, either homeless, needing additional resources. So we put these positions in place to help many youth navigate through some of those systems to hopefully, right, have this last one and done at the end, right? We don't want to see them come back. So those are the hopes. I think it's one part. That's my hope. My bigger hope is that the community will come together and wrap their arms around some of these vulnerable youth, looking them a little bit more at some prevention, right? Kind of burning the candle at both ends, seeing what we could do for families prior to youth being pipelined to the criminal justice system. And then once they're there with us, ensuring that we're doing our best to assess what the needs are prior to discharge. The other piece is the resources, right? Ensuring that some of our youth have some type of connections, some networks that can help them, that can support them, in hopes that they don't return back to the detention center. To you, Mr. President, it all depends, if I can say that. A lot of limitations because, they're not allowed to leave the facility, but we do bring in a lot of contracted services and do those assessments. So if there's a need, they receive the counseling, they receive mental health, they receive the psychotropic medication that they need, and they receive the monitoring going forward.
Juvenile offenders are better served in a facility like this or in a facility for adults? I would actually ask that better for our community and in terms of the juvenile offenders as well.
Through you, Mr. President, if I could speak frankly, I think the detention center location as a whole is not conducive to detention. I guess my answer would be a little differently if we were in a different facility, and we had the opportunity to do that assessment. At this point, it's the facility as a whole makes it very difficult to do a lot of the programming and things that we need. That where we are right now was never made for detention. It was kind of like a rollover as a state facility from right across the street at Industry. So we're making out the best we can with what we have. We brought trailers in. We've done some out of the box thinking for education and for services, but I would be remiss to say that we don't struggle just because of the layout of the facility as a whole.
I would just add that my grandparents.
Legislator Baines.
First, thank you so much, Legislator, for your kind sentiments. Through you, Mr. President, probably 100%. We follow, I mean, everything is under state regulatory requirements. We answer to two oversight bodies, state corrections, as well as New York State Office of Children and Family Services.
Body to help the work.
Thank you so much for that question. Through you, Mr. President, advocate. Again, if I could just reiterate, the legislation is very young, right? We know so much more now. I just think it opens up a conversation with our state partners to kind of take a inventory of what's going on statewide. Maybe an opportunity to readjust the laws a little bit, around flexibility. We've been very thankful for their partnership in allowing us to move some of the more violent youth out of our facility. And again, I got to elevate our partnership with the Sheriff's Department, especially Sheriff Baxter and his assistants with just coming in and helping us. I think there's a hybrid model that we can probably engage in hoping that the state will be open to those conversations. Again, supplementing some of the state training around de-escalation and, what we call handle with care, with maybe inserting a little bit of the trainings that our deputies utilize in a correction setting. When we had the sheriffs on site, we found that to be extremely helpful. I mean, something as basic as to say, hey guys, maybe we don't want to bring out these many youth at one time, right? Maybe we can transition a little differently. Maybe we can implement, right? Some things around good behavior and a point system and rewards a little differently. So simplistic examples, but I think we have an opportunity to advocate at the state level to say, can we have a conversation on possibly just kind of looking at the laws and the legislation and what we know now? And is there an opportunity to pivot to a different model?
Anxiety about it, but you're living.
Legislator Smith.
Legislator Smith?
President, to the commissioner. You had mentioned to Legislator Kasman that in the perfect scenario that you wouldn't see somebody come back. Do you have a percentage of how many do come back to the detention center?
To you, Mr. President, not with me, but I can get some of that data.
Legislator DeFlorio?
To you, Mr. President, I think any assistance would be helpful. I will say that we're in the process now of exploring alternative options, possibility of contracting with a retired law enforcement officer to come out and maybe for a short term, right, work with us. We also have like an assistant director position posted. So really being strategic on hopefully getting a great applicant that has some law enforcement background, understanding they have caps and waivers and all those things. But really doing some strategic recruitment for some of our safety and training and leadership positions over at the.
Legislator Roman?
Discussing this particular topic. I just want to ensure that we have accurate information. Just to back up kind of what Legislator Smith asked for, if we can have like for young people who are in adult facilities versus young people who are in juvenile detention centers.
Anyone else? Legislator Lee?
Mr. President, are we speaking of the staff or the youth? I can get you the specific numbers, but I can tell you off the top of my head that we have disproportionate minority contact, right? So we do have children of color that are overrepresented, just as in our child welfare system that we have in our detention center setting, but I can get you the specific demographic.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. President, no. The only thing is that they can't be in full uniform, which includes pepper spray, batons, tasers, any aversives are against regulatory requirements.
Anyone else? Seeing none, the Committee of the Whole stands adjourned and shall rise and report in the same matter as the Legislature's standing committees. The July 1st, 2021 special meeting of the Legislature is reconvened. There being no unfinished business, Legislator Brew.
Tuesday, July 13th.